The Ouija that wouldn't let go. I never believed in spirits. Not really. Not in the way people talk about them. Ghosts floating around, shadows moving in the dark, demons waiting to be summoned. I always thought all of that was just stories made up to scare kids, or maybe to give adults an excuse when something unexplainable happened. But what I'm about to tell you, it happened to me. And ever since that night, I've learned the hard way that some doors, once opened, never close again. It all started with a game. At least that's what we thought it was. I was 17 when my best friend, Melissa, brought over a battered old Ouija board she found at a thrift store. It wasn't the shiny kind you see in toy stores. This one was wooden, dark, with carved letters that seemed too precise, too sharp. The planchette wasn't plastic, it was a heavy piece of wood with a small glass circle in the center. Just holding it made my fingers cold. Melissa was obsessed with ghost stories. She had been talking about contacting the dead for weeks, and I guess her excitement was contagious. That Friday night, instead of hanging out at the mall or watching movies like normal kids, we decided to play with the board. There were 4 of us in the room. Me, Melissa, her cousin Rachel, and my friend Jason. We sat in a circle on the floor of Melissa's basement, the only light coming from 2 candles she insisted on lighting. She said it set the mood. To me, it made everything feel darker than it should have been. We placed our fingers on the planchette. At first, nothing happened. We laughed, teased each other, and accused Jason of trying to push it. But then something shifted. The planchette moved. At first it was slow, a gentle nudge sliding toward yes. We all looked at each other nervously. Nobody admitted to moving it. My heart raced, but I told myself it was just someone playing a trick. Melissa asked the first question. Is there someone here with us? The planchette glided to yes. We froze. The candle flames flickered, though there was no draft. My skin prickled with goosebumps. Rachel giggled nervously. Okay, who are you? The board spelled out A-N-N-A. Melissa's eyes widened. Anna, are you a good spirit? The planchette hesitated, then moved to no. Jason pulled his hands back immediately. All right, I'm done. This is creepy. But Melissa scolded him, saying you couldn't just leave in the middle of a session. You have to close it properly, or else, she whispered. She never finished the sentence, but her voice shook in a way that didn't sound like she was joking. We tried to say goodbye, but when Melissa asked if Anna would leave, the planchette darted across the board to spell N-E-V-E-R. That's when the first candle went out. We screamed. I felt the cold rush of air sweep across the room, though the basement was sealed shut. The second candle flickered violently, almost as if invisible hands were cupped around it. Melissa tried to close the session again, her voice shaking. Goodbye, goodbye, she said, moving the planchette herself toward the word. But the piece wouldn't stay. It kept sliding back to no. And then it spelled M-I-N-E. The room grew unbearably cold. My breath came out in white mist. Jason swore he felt someone standing behind him, breathing down his neck. Rachel started crying. We ran upstairs, leaving the board behind. Melissa locked the basement door, swearing she'd burn the thing in the morning. But that night, none of us slept. I lay awake, listening to the creaks of my own house, every shadow feeling alive, every whisper of the wind sounding like a voice. At 3:12 a.m., I swear I heard a knock on my bedroom door. 3 slow knocks. When I opened it, nobody was there, and yet I felt something brush past me, something unseen but heavy, as if the air itself had a body. That was the first night, the night we realized the game wasn't a game at all. We had summoned something, and it wasn't going back. The next morning, I woke up exhausted, my body heavy like I hadn't slept at all. My dreams were broken, fragments of whispers, shadows moving at the corners of my vision, and a constant feeling that something was watching me. The kind of dream where you wake up and swear the nightmare followed you into the daylight. I tried to convince myself it was just nerves, just my imagination running wild from the night before. But when I dragged myself to the bathroom and looked in the mirror, I saw something that froze me in place. On my wrist, just above the vein, there were 3 faint scratches, not deep, but red and fresh, like claws had dragged across my skin. I had no memory of doing it to myself. I told myself maybe I'd scratched in my sleep. But when I went to school later that day, I noticed Melissa's cousin Rachel kept pulling down her sleeve. When I asked why, she looked pale, her eyes tired. Reluctantly, she showed me her arm. She had the same marks, 3 thin scratches, in the exact same place. Jason tried to laugh it off. He said we probably did it to ourselves without realizing it, but he wouldn't roll up his sleeve when we asked. He just avoided our eyes and changed the subject. That told me enough. Later that day, Melissa pulled us together in the cafeteria. Her voice was hushed, but there was an edge to it I hadn't heard before. "It followed us," she said. "I don't care if you believe me or not, but Anna's not gone." Rachel started crying. Jason cursed under his breath and walked away. But I couldn't laugh anymore. Not with the marks burning on my wrist like they were carved from the inside out. That night the scratches itched. They burned. And when I finally drifted into sleep, I dreamed of a woman with hollow eyes standing in the corner of my room, whispering my name over and over. When I woke, the scratches were deeper, and they were bleeding. I didn't go to school the next day. I told my mom I had a headache, which was true, but that wasn't why I stayed home. I didn't want to see Melissa. I didn't want to see Rachel. I didn't want to look at their wrists and know we were all marked like cattle. I didn't want to talk about the board or the word never, or the way the candle went out like someone pinched it between 2 fingers. I spent the morning trying to be normal. I made coffee. I opened the windows. I turned on the TV for noise. Nothing helped. The house felt wrong, like a hotel room where someone else had already unpacked, invisible and quiet, waiting for me to notice. Every few minutes I would catch a shape in the corner of my eye and whip my head around, only to see the empty couch, the empty hallway, the empty door. At 10:11 a.m., the TV cut to static for 3 seconds. I counted them. 1, 2, 3. When the picture snapped back, the volume had climbed to almost full. I grabbed the remote, turned it down, and told myself it was a glitch. At 11:44 a.m., my phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. It said, "Play." I blocked it and deleted the message. 2 minutes later, the same word appeared again, but now it was a notification from my Notes app. I don't remember typing it. I don't even remember opening the app. I deleted it. The word came back as a reminder. Play at 3:12 a.m. I didn't set that reminder. I know I didn't. At noon, the doorbell rang. I looked through the peephole. No one was there. When I opened the door, a small package sat on the mat, wrapped in brown paper and tied with twine. There was no return address. I brought it inside because that is what you do when you do not yet understand that you are already inside the trap. I cut the twine with kitchen scissors and peeled away the paper. Inside was the Ouija board, not the one Melissa bought. Ours was still in her basement, behind a locked door. This one was older. The wood was darker, almost black, with the letters cut by a hand that did not hurry. The planchette was bone white. Real bone, I think now. It was too smooth, too warm. It smelled faintly like old books and something sweet, like flowers left too long in a vase. There was a note folded beneath it, 4 words written in a shaky hand. "You forgot to say." I didn't tell my mom. What would I say? A haunted board mailed itself to me. The truth sounded insane even in my own head. I carried the box to my room and shoved it under the bed like a coward, hiding a weapon he didn't know how to use. For the rest of the day, I tried not to go back in there. I ate dinner in the kitchen. I washed the same plate twice. I listened to the fridge hum and timed my breathing to it. At 10 p.m., Melissa called. She didn't say hello. She said, "It's in my house." I knew exactly what she meant. She spoke fast, like the words were chasing her. The basement door was unlocked when she got home, though she swore she turned the key that morning. The board was on the table. The planchette was in the middle of the board, dead center, like an eye waiting to blink. Her mum said she hadn't been down there. Her dad said they didn't keep spare keys. Melissa said the board spelled her name when she tried to walk away. It spelled it again when she turned the lights off. It spelled it a third time slowly when she locked the door. "I think it wants us to play," she said. "It doesn't want to play," I said. "It wants to keep us." We argued. We begged each other. We said things we didn't mean. We said we were done. We said we were burning it. We said we were smart. We said we were strong. We said everything people say when they are already owned by something they cannot see. At 3:12 a.m., my phone alarm went off, though I had never set one for that time. The reminder I deleted was back on my lock screen. Play. I lay there, staring at the glowing word for a long time. In the dark, the letters felt like a mouth, opening. 3 knocks sounded on my bedroom wall, not on the door, on the wall that faces the outside. 3 slow knocks, spaced like breath. I put my hands over my ears, but I still heard them, inside my head, knocking on the soft parts of my fear. I went under the bed and pulled the box out. I told myself I would only look at it. I told myself I would text Melissa, tell her to stop, tell her we could meet in daylight and throw both boards into the river. I told myself I would not touch it. I touched it. I set the board on the floor. I put the planchette in the center. I did not light candles. I did not turn off the lights. I did not say any opening words. I just sat there and watched my hands lower themselves to the bone-white heart. When my fingers touched, a cold wave rolled up my arms like ice water poured into my veins. "Is someone here with me?" I asked. The planchette moved at once. It slid with a sharp confidence that felt like a smile under a mask. It went to yes. "Anna," I whispered. The planchette made a quick circle, then went to no. I felt the room tilt. The air grew thick. The lights dimmed even though the bulb above me was still steady. "Who are you?" I asked. The planchette scraped across the board. Slow this time. OLD. My mouth went dry. "What do you want?" "YOU." I should have stopped there. I should have said goodbye and forced the planchette down over the word, even if my fingers burned. But that was the trick. It kept answering. The answers were small fish on a hook, flicking, and I was hungry for certainty. I kept asking. It kept feeding me just enough. "Where are you from?" BELOW. "Why us?" OPEN. "Who is Anna?" There was a pause. The planchette didn't move. I held my breath. Then it slid with a speed that made my fingers sting. MASK. A draft touched the back of my neck like cold breath. My bedroom window was closed. I checked it anyway. Locked. When I turned back, the planchette had shifted without my hands into the center again. "What happens if I stop?" I asked. The planchette didn't spell a word. It drew a short line, then another parallel to it, then a third. 3 lines. I looked down at my wrist and understood. The scratches. The mark. A debt count. I yanked my hands away. The planchette slid on its own and tapped the board 3 times hard. The sound was small, but it rang in my bones like a hammer on metal. I forced myself to say it. "Goodbye." The planchette shot to no. "Goodbye." "No." "Good." The lights went out. The house died. Every appliance clicked silent at once. In the sudden dark, I could hear my heart trying to escape my chest. I grabbed my phone to use the screen as light, but the battery icon that had shown 61% before now read 6%. It dropped to 5% as I watched. Then my phone buzzed, a new message from an unknown number. I opened it because I could not help myself. It was a photo. The photo showed my bedroom, my bed, my desk, the board on the floor, and me, sitting cross-legged, looking down. The angle was from the corner of the ceiling, directly above me. Behind me in the photo, a shape leaned out of the shadow near my closet. A long, pale face, hollow eyes, a mouth too wide, smiling. My real room was empty. I knew it was empty. I told myself it was empty. But I could feel the air bending around a shape that the eyes could not yet see. The power came back with a low hum. The lights flickered once and steadied. My phone jumped from 5% to 59% as if nothing had happened. The message disappeared. The photo was gone. The notification list was clean. I pressed the planchette with both palms and shoved it to goodbye like I was dragging a stubborn animal to a cage. It fought me. It stuck on the letter D. It tried to move back. I pushed harder. Something sharp bit my thumbs and I smelled iron. When I lifted my hands, 2 neat crescents of blood dotted the planchette where my skin had broken. The room warmed by 1 degree. Not much, but it was enough to breathe again. I slid the board back into the box and wrapped the twine tight. I hid it in the back of my closet. I stacked shoes on top. I told myself that was enough for a night, that I had won a small round. That morning would come, and I would wake and this would feel distant, like a bad movie that had ended. At 3:12 a.m. the next night, my phone alarm went off again. Play. I didn't set it. I didn't delete it. I held the phone in my hands and watched the word glow while the house listened with me. I finally understood what the note meant. We hadn't forgotten the word itself. We had forgotten what the word did. Goodbye was never a closing, not to this. It was an agreement, a promise to return, a pause between turns, because this was never a session. It was a game, and games by their nature are made to keep going. The next morning, there were 3 new scratches on my other wrist. Melissa called me the morning after the new scratches appeared. Her voice was raw, as if she hadn't stopped crying all night. She didn't even ask how I was. She already knew. Instead, she whispered, "It's happening to all of us, isn't it?" I told her about the photo on my phone, about the board that wasn't ours arriving on my doorstep, about the scratches multiplying like a debt collector tallying what was owed. She didn't sound surprised. She said she had dreamed of Anna again, only this time Anna had no face. Just a white blur, like a mask, and a hand that reached out to cover her mouth while she screamed. Rachel had stopped going to school altogether. Jason was refusing to answer calls. Melissa said she went to his house the night before, and his mom looked scared when she opened the door. She told Melissa Jason hadn't been himself. He sat in the dark, whispering to someone who wasn't there. He'd carved 3 lines into his desk with a knife. His mom thought it was just stress, but Melissa and I knew better. We agreed to meet that afternoon, all 4 of us. We needed answers. We needed to finish what we had started, or at least try. Melissa suggested the old church at the edge of town, the one abandoned for years, its windows boarded up, its steeple leaning like a broken finger. "If there's anywhere to fight it," she said, "it has to be a place that once belonged to God." I wasn't sure if God still lingered there, but we were desperate. When I arrived, the sun was setting, bleeding orange light through the cracks in the boards. The air inside smelled like mold and rot. Dust danced in the beams of our flashlights. The pews were warped, splintered by years of neglect. The altar was draped with a filthy sheet, but the cross still hung above it, crooked and heavy. Melissa, Rachel, and Jason were already there. Jason looked hollow, his skin pale, his eyes ringed with purple shadows. Rachel clutched a rosary in her hand so tight her knuckles had gone white. Melissa carried the original Ouija board, the one from her basement. I carried the other, the one that came to me. 2 boards, both waiting. We set them on the altar. For a moment, no one spoke. The silence was heavy, like the church itself was holding its breath. Finally, Melissa said, "We need to end it. Together." Jason shook his head. "You can't end something that doesn't want to end." His voice was flat, detached, as if he was only half there. "It's older than us. Older than this town. Older than everything." "Then we at least try," Melissa snapped. Her eyes burned with a desperation I had never seen in her before. "If we don't, it will take us one by one." Rachel whispered a prayer, her lips trembling. She was shaking so badly the rosary rattled in her hands. We placed our fingers on both planchettes. The boards seemed to hum, as if alive. The wood vibrated faintly under my skin. My stomach twisted with dread, but I didn't pull away. None of us did. Melissa asked the question we had been avoiding. "What do you want from us?" Both planchettes moved at once, scraping across the boards in unison. One spelled S-O-U-L, the other spelled Y-O-U-R-S. Rachel sobbed, jerking her hand back. The planchette she had abandoned kept moving without her, spelling the word B-L-O-O-D. Jason laughed. Not his normal laugh. A hollow, joyless sound that didn't belong to him. "It already has us," he said. "We belong to it now. The marks. They're proof. 3 scratches for each of us. 3 promises." Melissa slammed her hand on the altar. "No, we can fight it. We can break it." The board shifted violently, as if struck by an unseen hand. Our flashlights flickered. The air grew thick with the smell of sulfur. The planchettes flew across the boards, then landed dead center, unmoving. And then we heard it. A voice. Not out loud, not in the air, but inside our skulls. A chorus of whispers overlapping into one terrible word. M-I-N-E. The church groaned, wood straining under invisible pressure. The boards began to crack. The cross above the altar shook, the nails squealing in protest. Jason's eyes rolled back. He convulsed, his body seizing as if something had crawled inside him. Rachel screamed and tried to pull him away, but he was too heavy. His mouth opened, and another voice spoke through him, deep, ancient, inhuman. "The game does not end." Melissa shouted prayers, her words cracking in the air. I grabbed the bone-white planchette and forced it to the word, "Goodbye." My fingers bled as I pushed, but it wouldn't stay. The letters blurred, the board itself warping under my hands. Then the cross above us fell. It crashed onto the altar, splitting both boards in half. The sound was deafening, like a gunshot inside stone walls. For a moment, everything went still. Silent. Rachel sobbed with relief. Melissa stared at the broken boards, her chest heaving. Jason lay motionless on the floor, his lips parted, his skin pale. For a heartbeat, I thought it was over. But then, from the cracked boards, the planchettes began to move. Alone, without hands. One spelled N-O, the other spelled P-A-U-S-E. The church grew colder than a grave. The broken cross at our feet seemed smaller now, weaker, and I understood the truth. We hadn't ended anything. We had just made a pact. The game would never end, not until it had taken all of us. And maybe not even then. After the church, none of us were the same. We left in silence, our breaths fogging in the night air even though it was summer. Melissa clutched the broken halves of the board from her basement like a mother carrying a dead child. I carried the other one, wrapped in a torn piece of the altar cloth. Rachel wouldn't stop praying under her breath. And Jason wouldn't look at any of us. His eyes seemed darker, like something was still sitting just behind them, waiting. I thought maybe breaking the boards would weaken it. But the next night proved I was wrong. So wrong. It started again at 3:12 a.m. I woke to the alarm I never set, glowing that same single word, play. I tried to ignore it. I buried the phone under my pillow. But then the scratching began, slow, deliberate, from inside my closet. 3 drags across the wood, pausing, then 3 more. I pulled the blanket over my head like a terrified child, but the sound grew louder, closer, until it felt like claws dragging across my skull. I must have blacked out because when I opened my eyes again, it was morning. But my closet door was wide open, and on the floor, carved deep into the wood, were 3 words, "Your turn now." At school, Melissa told me she hadn't slept either. She said her house had filled with whispers all night long, like 100 voices chanting prayers backwards. Rachel didn't show up at all. Jason sat in the back of class, staring at nothing, his lips moving silently like he was still talking to the thing. By the afternoon, we decided we couldn't stay apart. That night, we met again, this time at my house. My mom was away working the night shift, and I told the others it was safer than another abandoned place. We gathered in my room, the broken boards lying between us on the floor. Melissa insisted we had to try one more time. "We didn't close it right," she said. "The cross broke the boards, but that wasn't us. We have to finish it ourselves. We have to force it to let us go." Jason just smiled, thin and cold. "It won't let you. It already won." Rachel clutched my arm. "Don't listen to him. That's not him talking." But deep down, I wondered if she was wrong. What if it was Jason now? What if it had always been Jason since that night in the basement? We lit candles and sat in a circle again. The broken halves of the boards lay in front of us, their edges jagged, splintered. I thought maybe they wouldn't work anymore. But as soon as our fingers touched the shards of the planchettes, they moved. Faster this time, confident, hungry. The shards scraped across the wood, dragging splinters, spelling out Neverends. Melissa cried out, "Then what do you want?" The pieces moved again, both at once. Onlyyours. The candles blew out. Darkness swallowed us whole. And then the room came alive. The posters on my walls shredded themselves, invisible hands clawing them to ribbons. My bed shook violently, the frames slamming against the wall. Books flew off the shelves. The closet door slammed open and shut again and again. I could hear footsteps in the hall, even though I knew we were the only ones in the house. Rachel screamed as something yanked her rosary straight off her neck, the beads scattering like teeth across the floor. Melissa grabbed her, pulling her close, but her own hair lifted into the air, strands pulled taut as if fingers were wrapped inside them. Jason sat perfectly still, smiling in the dark. His teeth gleamed faintly in the candlelight's afterglow, and then his mouth opened wider than it should have, his jaw stretching, cracking, until it looked like it might unhinge. From the pit of his throat came the whisper, not in his voice, not in any human voice, M-I-N-E. I lunged forward, slamming the shards of my board back into the box. Melissa did the same with hers. For a second, the chaos paused. A heavy silence fell, broken only by the sound of Jason's ragged breathing. His head tilted like he was listening to something none of us could hear. Then he said softly, almost tenderly, "It doesn't live in the boards. It lives in us now." My skin went cold. I wanted to deny it, but the truth pressed on me like a weight. The scratches, the whispers, the photos, the alarms. The boards were just doorways. The thing had already stepped through. When the candles flared back to life, Jason was gone. His spot in the circle was empty. The boards were gone too. All that remained was the smell of sulfur and a single word carved into my floorboards beneath where he had sat: continue. After Jason vanished, the 3 of us sat frozen in my room, staring at the empty space where he had been. The word carved into the floor, continue, still looked fresh, as if the wood itself had bled it. My hands trembled, my chest tight. I wanted to run, to leave everything behind, but Melissa's voice held me there. "He's not gone," she whispered. "It has him." Rachel shook her head violently. No, he left. He chose it. He wanted it. But deep down, I knew Melissa was right. Jason hadn't just walked away. Something had claimed him, and now he belonged to it. That night, none of us slept. Melissa stayed at my house, too afraid to go back to hers. Rachel left, but she called me every hour until dawn, her voice shaking more each time. She said she kept hearing footsteps outside her bedroom door, slow and heavy, like boots dragging on the carpet. When she finally fell silent around 4 in the morning, I feared the worst. But by sunrise, she sent a single message. "I'm still here." By afternoon, the 3 of us decided to search for Jason. We couldn't just leave him out there, not when the thing had him. We followed the only clue we had, the church. If anything evil still lingered in this town, it would pull him back there. The sun dipped low as we reached the broken building. Its steeple leaned farther now, like it was bowing to something we couldn't see. Inside, the air was colder than it should have been, the smell of sulfur and mildew thick. The shattered boards we had left behind were gone. The cross that had fallen from the wall was upright again, but upside down, nailed back in place by hands that couldn't have been human. And then we saw him. Jason stood at the altar, his back to us, perfectly still. His head tilted slightly, as if listening to something whispering from beneath the floorboards. His clothes were the same, but wrong somehow, darker, almost damp, clinging to his body like they had been soaked in shadow. "Jason," Melissa called softly. Her voice cracked. He turned slowly. His eyes were black, not just dark, black like ink had spilled across them, drowning the whites. His smile was too wide, too sharp, like it was carved there. When he spoke, his voice echoed, layered with something older. "You came back. Good. It's your turn." Rachel grabbed my arm. "That's not him," she hissed, but Melissa stepped forward anyway. "Jason, fight it," she pleaded. "Please, don't let it win." His smile twitched. For a heartbeat, I thought I saw something human flicker in his face. But then he lifted his arm, and I saw 3 fresh scratches running down from his shoulder to his wrist, deeper than ours. His voice thundered, "The game owns me. And now..." The church groaned, dust raining down from the rafters. The floorboards beneath us cracked open, revealing darkness that smelled of iron and rot. Whispers poured out, thousands of them overlapping, each one calling our names. Jason's body lurched forward unnaturally, like a puppet pulled by strings. He moved faster than human, crossing the distance between us in seconds. Rachel screamed as he reached for her, his fingers clawing at her sleeve. I pulled her back, but his touch left 3 black marks burned into the fabric. Melissa shouted, raising her broken half of the Ouija board like a shield. The whispers shrieked in response, the sound piercing like knives in my ears. Jason staggered back, clutching his head, his mouth opening in a silent scream. For a moment, I thought it was working, but then the cracks in the floor widened and something began to crawl through. It wasn't Jason this time. It was what owned him. Long, pale fingers, jointed wrong, clawed the floor. A face followed, smooth, faceless, shifting like melted wax. It dragged itself upward, and the room shook with its arrival. The candles we had brought flared violently, their flames stretching tall and green. Jason fell to his knees, his eyes still black, his body shaking. "It's here," he whispered. "It's here for all of us." The thing stood tall now, towering over us, its faceless head tilting as if curious. It smelled of rot and roses, sweetness mixed with decay. It pointed at me, its finger long, thin and sharp. And in that moment I understood. Jason wasn't the only one it had chosen. He was just the first. The game wasn't about the boards anymore. It was about us, our souls, our bodies, our lives, and one by one, it would take us all. The thing that pulled itself through the church floor was not human. Its body shifted like smoke and bone, its limbs jerking with the stiffness of a marionette. Yet every movement carried weight, as if gravity bent to its will. The faceless head turned toward us, and though it had no eyes, I felt its gaze slide through my skin, searching, claiming. Rachel collapsed to her knees, clutching the broken rosary, muttering prayers that turned into sobs. Melissa pulled me back, but the floor was cracking beneath us, splintering like ice. Jason knelt at the altar, trembling, his black eyes leaking streams of thick, tar-like tears. He looked like he wanted to scream, but the sound that came out of his mouth was not his. It was the voice of the thing. "You are already inside the game." The words didn't come from the air, they came from inside my skull. They throbbed against my bones, rattling through my chest. I pressed my hands to my ears, but it didn't stop. None of us could block it out. Melissa shouted back, desperate, "We didn't invite you, you can't have us." The faceless head twitched, tilting unnaturally. Then the voice filled the church again. "You opened the door. You knocked. We answered." The candles along the walls lit themselves one by one, bathing the ruined pews in a sickly green glow. The shadows of the church stretched upward, twisting into shapes that didn't match our bodies. They loomed taller, more distorted, with clawed hands and mouths too wide, their heads jerking side to side like broken dolls. Jason rose unsteadily, his mouth moving in sync with the voice. "One of you must stay. One of you must give yourselves, or the game will never stop." Rachel wailed, shaking her head violently. "No, no, I won't." She clutched my arm so tightly her nails cut into my skin. Melissa's jaw tightened. I saw the war in her eyes, the pull of fear against the pull of sacrifice. She looked at me, and for a second, I thought she might offer herself. But before she could speak, the thing pointed again, its long finger aimed at me. The air thickened, heavy as water, crushing my chest. I couldn't breathe. I couldn't move. My body was frozen in place as its faceless head tilted closer. I felt the hollow space where its eyes should be drilling into me, filling me with a cold that wasn't just on my skin, it was in my blood. The voice in my skull grew louder. "Yours, yours, yours." Melissa screamed, shoving me to the ground. The pressure lifted for a moment and she raised the broken half of her board like a weapon, striking the thing's arm. The wood cracked on contact, splintering in her hands, but the thing recoiled slightly, its faceless head snapping toward her. Jason's voice echoed, but this time there was something human buried deep in it. "Run." Melissa froze. "Jason!" "Run!" he screamed, his voice breaking through for the briefest second before the black swallowed him again. His body jerked violently, collapsing to the ground like a puppet with cut strings. The thing let out a sound that wasn't a roar, wasn't a scream, but something between, a hollow exhale that shook the entire building. Dust rained from the rafters. The cracked floor widened, revealing endless black beneath. I grabbed Rachel, pulling her to her feet, and Melissa sprinted beside us. We ran through the church, the walls bending, the windows shattering as we passed. The green flames licked higher, chasing us with shadows that clawed at our heels. Behind us, Jason's body convulsed, rising again, his mouth opening impossibly wide. The voice followed, "No escape, no end." We burst through the church doors into the night. The air outside was no safer. The sky rippled like water, the stars bending, warping. The whole world felt wrong, twisted. The game was not inside the church anymore. It was everywhere. Rachel collapsed in the grass, sobbing, her prayers spilling out, broken and desperate. Melissa dragged her up, shouting at me, "We can't stop. It'll follow us." And she was right. Even as we stumbled into the road, gasping for breath, I could hear the hollow voice whispering in the wind, in the rustle of trees, in the pounding of my own blood. Continue. The game wasn't bound to the boards. It wasn't bound to the church. It had spread beyond, bleeding into the world around us. The scratches on my arms burned, raw and fresh, as if invisible claws had torn them open again. Rachel screamed, clutching her chest, saying she felt something inside her lungs, crawling. Melissa looked at me, her face pale, her eyes wild. It won't stop until it takes one of us, maybe all of us. I knew then the truth. The game wasn't about winning. It was about surviving each round, stretching it as long as possible until we couldn't anymore. And round by round, it was pulling us closer to the end. We ran until our legs gave out, but the voice followed. No matter how far we went, no matter how hard we tried to outpace it, the whispers stayed with us, clinging to the air, to our skin, to the marrow in our bones. It was inside us now. Every breath we took was tainted with its presence. Rachel collapsed first. She fell to the pavement, coughing violently, her body racked with spasms. When I bent down to help her, I froze. Her eyes were rolled back, showing only the whites. Her lips moved, but the words weren't her own. M-I-N-E. Melissa screamed her name, shaking her, but Rachel's body jerked unnaturally, lifting off the ground as though invisible strings held her. 3 new scratches appeared across her throat, bleeding thin lines down her neck. She gasped once, her eyes snapping open, and whispered, "It won't let me go." Then she went still. I wanted to believe she was unconscious, that we could wake her. But the truth pressed cold and heavy against my chest. Rachel was gone. The game had claimed her. Melissa pulled me up, her face streaked with tears, her voice breaking. "We have to keep going. If we stop, it takes us." We stumbled down the empty streets, the world around us twisted and hollow. Streetlights flickered with sickly green light. Houses loomed like corpses, their windows dark, their doors open wide as if inviting us inside. But we knew better. Nowhere was safe. The game had spread too far. At 3:12 a.m., my phone lit up again. One word: play. I wanted to throw it away, smash it, bury it. But even as I thought it, I knew it wouldn't matter. Phones, boards, walls, none of it mattered anymore. The game was everywhere, in everything, even in me. Melissa grabbed my hand, her nails digging into my skin. "We fight it, we don't stop, we don't give in." But when she said it, her voice faltered, because she knew the truth as well as I did. The game doesn't end. It only waits for its turn. We found ourselves back where it began, Melissa's basement. I don't even remember choosing to go there. Our feet carried us like puppets, guided by something stronger than will. The broken boards were waiting on the floor, whole again, as if they had never been split. The bone-white planchette gleamed in the candlelight, though no candles had been lit. Melissa dropped to her knees. "We have to try one last time," she whispered. "If we can't end it, maybe we can trap it." I wanted to scream at her, to tell her it was useless, but the words stuck in my throat. My hands were already moving toward the planchette, as though they belonged to someone else. Melissa's fingers joined mine, trembling. The planchette slid instantly. Y-O-U-R-S. Melissa shouted, her voice breaking, "Then take me! Leave him alone!" I tried to pull her hand away, but she forced it down, her eyes wide with terror and determination. "If one of us has to go, let it be me. Please!" The planchette moved faster, circling wildly, then spelling N-O-S-A-C-R-I-F-I-C-E. Melissa's face drained of color. "Then what do you want?" she screamed. The answer came sharp and immediate: A-L-L. The basement shook, The walls groaned, the lights burst, raining glass. Melissa screamed, her body jerking violently. 3 deep scratches ripped across her back, tearing through her shirt. She fell forward, gasping, her breath ragged. I pulled her up, but her eyes met mine, wide with horror. "It's not letting go," she whispered. "It's never letting go." And then she was gone, limp in my arms. The planchette slid on its own, tapping the board over and over. Continue, continue, continue. Now I sit here, alone. The scratches on my arms burn like fire. The phone glows beside me, the word on the screen pulsing like a heartbeat. Play. I know what comes next. My turn. And after me, maybe yours. Because once you've heard this story, once you've let the words inside your head, the game has already started. And it will never end. If you made it this far, you're already part of the game. Don't forget to subscribe for more terrifying stories, because the next one might already be waiting for you.